Wonderful. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Jewish Teen Funders Network webinar, Youth Philanthropy Online. We're so excited that you're here joining us today.
Well, I had to learn the new, I usually read on Yom Kippur afternoon with the regular trope.
If I could ask everyone to put themselves on mute, or we can do that too for you. Thank you so much. This is going to be an interactive session, so at some point we will definitely be asking you to turn your microphones back on. So thank you so much for joining today. We asked you to put in the chat box some sweet things that you are looking forward to in your new year academically and the Jewish New Year, and we have some wonderful things in the chat box. Someone says they're really looking forward to everything autumn and all the great things that come with fall. Someone's saying that they're really looking forward to actually spending some more time with their kids, with homeschooling being more of a thing at the moment because of remote learning. Someone says that they're looking forward to seeing a new group of teens. Someone is saying that health, they're really looking forward to health in the new year, and Rosh Hashanah dinner, maybe outside, Rosh Hashanah dinner outside. I love that. So thank you everybody so much for sharing. So thank you for joining us today. We are going to be focusing on transferring our teen philanthropy programs, our Jewish teen philanthropy programs into an online space, and how to create virtual space in an effective, engaging way. We are the Jewish Teen Funders Network. We strengthen Jewish engagement and identity through supporting and elevating the field of Jewish teen philanthropy. We do this by setting field standards, providing training and resources to professionals, mainstreaming philanthropy into the Jewish teen experience, and also serving as a lead catalyst for new programs. And Jewish youth philanthropy is a powerful way for young people to take meaningful action to change the world by giving. So we're really happy that you're here today, no matter what field you are in. We're mainly going to be focusing on philanthropy education, but a lot of the things that we are covering are very transferable to other forms of experiential online Jewish education. So what are we going to be covering today? We're going to be talking about creating a virtual space, how we do that, and how we do it effectively. We are going to look at some tools and how and where you can actually use them in your programs. And then we're actually going to be doing a walkthrough and a demo of 3 very specific activities that come from our curriculum, so that you can have a go and actually experience how to bring some of these lesson plans, some of these activities into your sessions. We're going to be looking at an exploration of justice issues, consensus activities, and we're also going to be looking at a values gallery walk, so looking at Jewish values and how to examine them a little bit more. So I am also, I think I failed to introduce myself. My name is Danielle Siegel. I am the Senior Program Manager of JTFN, and it is my pleasure to now hand you over to my colleague Alana, who's going to introduce herself and take us away.
Thanks so much, Danielle. As Danielle mentioned, we're going to be going into speaking about creating our virtual spaces. And also, I should actually introduce myself as well. I am the Community and Special Projects Manager here at JTFN. And just thrilled to be talking about some of these things and some of these tools that we can be using to create these spaces. And essentially, when we're talking about creating virtual space, when we think about our programs in general, and think about how they come together in physical spaces, and the importance of setting the stage and having ritual and having routine, one of the things that has come up time and time again in our programs is many programs will meet in the same space, but many will meet in different spaces. So as we think about this today, we're going to be looking into how to create a space when you walk into, since you can't be walking into a specific room, how do we create a space where we can all feel like we're coming together and entering something that is the same each time we meet. And so in working together, Danielle and I have actually discovered this idea of the Bitmoji Google Classroom. And we're going to be sharing that with you in just a moment, of what that looks like and how you can actually use this space throughout your entire year to shape the space that the teens will be interacting in, and to make it feel like they're coming back to that same, if not physical space, but same feeling each time they come to your program. And so the idea is to create something that's welcoming and that they can interact with in this online environment. So Danielle, if you can actually go ahead and share so people get an idea of what are we actually talking about. So here you will see a little virtual space. It looks like our office at 150 West 30th Street in New York City, although it is not, obviously. And so essentially here we've added in lots of different pieces to make it feel like our space. You'll see we've actually even added in Bitmoji characters. There was one of myself, there's one of Wayne Green, our executive director, and of Danielle as well. And so the benefit of this, if we can actually go to the slide, the virtual space slide, Danielle. So when you're creating your virtual space, the idea is that this is a place where you can do some pre-program planning and you can create this welcoming space. You saw it's fun. Everything in there is clickable. So we have put in links and different pieces where actually once this link is shared with your teens, everything in that room, in that slide, is a clickable link. And this can be used throughout your entire program year. So it is a place where all links will live. So participants will only ever need one link, and you can keep on adding to this throughout the year. As new items come up, you can either create new items in your room that have a link, or you can actually create a brand new slide if there's something very specific that warrants it or needs its own dedicated slide. And so even if you look at the bottom, there's a little green arrow button. You can actually link back and forth between the slides in your presentation and within your main room. So there's so much possibility with this particular platform. And it's important to note that this is an asynchronous platform, meaning that it is something, it acts like a website. So anybody who is using this platform is going to have their own user experience. So if I click on that green button at the bottom, which I think Danielle is going to do for me right now, it takes me back to this room. But if you happen to be on this platform and you were clicking around in this virtual room, it would take you to your links. And we're going to be using that terminology throughout the webinar today, synchronous and asynchronous. For synchronous learning, meaning that it's a tool or a platform that the teens can use at the same time, or asynchronous, such as this. And so the other thing as we look at this classroom and how we can use it is that I started to talk a little bit about the slide feature, and this actually on the back end looks like a PowerPoint presentation or Google Slides. And this is being created actually in Google Slides. So you would actually need a Google account set up, but it is free to use. And if you're familiar with PowerPoint and how to interact with PowerPoint, it is pretty much the same. It's fairly, it's a very user-friendly experience. It's fairly easy to use, and you set it up. You can link to, as I said, any item in this room and start plugging in the things that you might need for your program year. So the other thing that you might want to do in your slides, you can create this room and create this experience. The other thing that I would love to show you is if you go, Danielle, if you could click on the llama. Yes, thank you. So the other thing that you could do is create a gallery slide. And so we're so accustomed in our programs to being able to make giant posters and put them on walls and have people walk around and do a gallery walk. And so now with online, this is a great alternative to that. If you have different, in this case, this is an example of an icebreaker where you could have different prompts on the walls. But there's many different ways that you could use this platform to do your gallery walk. And we'll show you some of those examples a little later on today. So if you could go back to the main room, thank you. And so we've actually designed a catalog. So this is our room that we've designed, but you're gonna wanna create your own room and do your own classroom or lounge. And so Danielle, if you can actually show the catalog. So we've created an entire slide deck with, it has a table of contents, and it has actually empty rooms that you could start from scratch and start copying and pasting different items that appear later in the slide deck. If you scroll down to maybe a few more, just one that has like a bunch of items on it, Danielle. Yeah, a random one. So if you see, we have like cubbies and cubes and different things that you would be able to copy and paste from this slide and put it into the other slide. And so you could really get very creative and start designing. And any image that you plug into your slide can be linked to something else. And so that might be the way that you want to design your classroom or your lounge. But that might be a little bit too intensive for you. So the other thing that we've done is we've created a couple of room templates that are already designed. So you can start just by using this slide and start by plugging in your own things there and add to it as needed, but then it's already created and you don't have to do a major lift with your template version. And we also have a watch party room, which is pretty cool, where you could embed a YouTube video and have it feel like a movie theater. So that's just a few examples of the catalog and how it can be used. And next week in our Build It session, we'll be going much more into that, so you can really dive in and think about how you want to design your classroom or lounge space for the year. And so the idea of this, and like how to use this in your program throughout the year, and use this as a space. Again, this can be your single space for the year and the holder of all your links. If you look on Danielle's desk, you'll see there's a Zoom link. You could actually have that be your link for all throughout the year. You can update it if the link changes, but then you wouldn't even need to necessarily send out a Zoom link even for your meetings. You can also insert different images. You can insert different pieces that, you know, there's a YouTube video we have embedded in here. We also have our justice issues activity. We have all different things that are clickable within this room. And so that's things that you can add to throughout the year. You also can make a fun activity of it and ask teens to send you an image that you could put in here. You could ask for things that they like through a prompt question, or you could actually hide things and make it a challenge and say, okay, these are all the standard things, but look for the hidden image. And so these are just a few different ways that you can interact with the space. But within this room for you today, we've actually put in additional tools that you can be using online as you think about the different ways that you want to engage your teens online. So I'm going to actually move on to talking about clicking a few different things in the room to show you where you can find these things, because at the end of the session, we're going to be sharing the link to our classroom or office in this case. And you'll have the opportunity to go through and click different things and see all the different online tools and pieces that will help you build a really great online program throughout the year. So the first online tool I want to highlight in our office is Padlet. And so Padlet is actually a photo gallery that it is a synchronous platform. and not asynchronous, but synchronous platform that teens can interact with together. And if you look at the bottom of the screen, there's a little pink button. They can actually add photos in real time and answer a prompt question. This is really a great platform to use for things like icebreakers, opening rituals, and reflection activities. Really easy to use. We definitely recommend it. And so that is one tool. Another tool I want to highlight for you in our room is MenteeMeter. And so MenteeMeter is an asynchronous platform where teens will be able to use this for polling, for quizzes, word cloud. It's interactive in the way that they're all answering questions, and you'll get that back in live time. So essentially where we recommend that you use this is also, you can use this in icebreakers and opening rituals. This is also a great platform for consensus because there's opportunities to do polls and ranking. It also is really helpful for prioritization with your mission statement activities, with justice issues and values, and also an activity that you could potentially do in your closing ceremonies at the end of the year as an engaging way to bring families and people in your community into some sort of interactive piece for an online year-end celebration. So these are just a couple of things that I wanted to highlight. I'm also going to now hand over to Danielle, who has a couple of items and tools that she's going to go over with you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Alana. Also, I see a lot of questions coming in the chat box. Thank you so much. Keep your questions coming. We're going to have time for Q&A at the end. We can answer some of those. And also, we're going to be doing a whole Build It session next week. So if you really want to have a go at making this yourself, we're going to be on hand to help you. But keep the questions coming, and we will try and get to them at the end of the session. So another tool that we want to show you is something called Flippity. Flippity is asynchronous, much like this. You can click, and what you click doesn't affect what other people click. We're going to go over an example of this a little bit later, but just so you can see what it looks like. Flippity is a platform that lets you create manipulatives and games. This is an example of a manipulative. You can move things around and set this up how you like. There are lots of different moments that you might want to use this in your philanthropy program. We've already created a couple. We have an Exploring Justice Issues one, and also an intro to consensus building, but you can do whatever you want. These are fully customizable. So this is just one example. You can also use it for personal values exploration, any moments where you want teens to have a personal reflection and go through an active activity during your session. Another thing that we wanted to show you is interactive whiteboards. This would be synchronous, so what you type affects what other people do, and you can see what everyone is typing. There are a few different platforms for that. We really like Jamboard. Jamboard is part of the Google family, so it is free of charge. You use it just through your normal Google account. This is one example. If you type on any of these pieces, other people can see it. Everyone comes in and shares the same whiteboard. And you can set up different pages. We have a template. This template is actually set up for proposal evaluation and organization evaluation, but you can really do a lot with Jamboard. So how might you use something like this in your program? You can use it for general note-taking and ongoing note-taking because it gets saved each time. You can use it for gallery walks, proposal review, consensus, and you can also use it for your final decision-making at the end of the program. So with all these tools, what is really key is just be creative. There are so many different tools. Hopefully this makes things a little bit more manageable. And you can see that there are certain ones that we would reuse over and over again because they're really effective. But it's great to have fun with it, especially creating your little Google room. It's actually really enjoyable setting up, and it provides a little bit of delight and excitement for the participants who you are working with. So now that we've had a general overview of some of the functionalities and some of the tools, we actually want to go through some activities with you all. So we are going to, and this is going to be interactive, so get ready to interact. So this activity is taken from our Changemakers curriculum. It is on page 88, just in case you have it in front of you and you are following along. And this is part of our values gallery walk. We identified 7 values, which are core to philanthropy and experiencing a philanthropy and experiencing the philanthropy process. So this is a activity towards the beginning of your program cycle where the participants can really wrestle with and examine some of those 7 values individually and in a group. So what I'm going to do in a second is I'm actually going to give you the link to our Google room so that you can do a gallery walk. So what you're going to do to start off with is everyone is going to look at our values posters. So you'll see that there are 2 walls of posters because we have 7 values. So individually, you are going to look at those values, you're going to read the quotes underneath, and then I will give you a couple of minutes to do that. And then we want you to choose a value, one that you really want to explore a little bit more, and you can then type it in the chat box. So I'm going to share the link in the chat box for everybody so that you can go to our, into our Google room. And please look at the 7 values and type in which one you would like to explore further. Okay, we're going to give you just another minute or so to read through your values and choose one that you would like to explore further. Okay, as people are finishing off and typing their values, so what we are going to do now is we are going to actually be using the breakout feature within Zoom. So this is a really good example of how you can use different tools at different times to really push your agenda, push your session forward. So you've looked through your gallery wall, which was within our Google Slides, and now we're going to implement the breakout group. So what we're going to do is you've all picked a value that you would like to explore further. So we are going to split you into breakout rooms according to the value that you are picking so that you can answer a couple of questions and do a little bit of exploring about your value. So you will notice here I'm sharing my screen, that when we split you into your groups, all of these posters are actually clickable. So let's say you are in the loving kindness group, you can click your loving kindness poster, and this actually takes you directly to our Zafaria page. We have a lot of different resources, traditional text resources for all our justice issues and also for our 7 values. So if I click Gimel Chasadim, you will notice that there are lots of different traditional texts and some questions that you can answer about those texts. So what we're going to do is when we split you into your group, you are going to pick just one of those texts and one of those questions to have a chat with your study buddy in your Hevruta. So this is for demo purposes. If you were doing this in real time, you could hopefully spend a lot more than a couple of minutes, but I think we're only going to give you about 4 minutes to discuss your value. So it's going to be nice and quick. So I see a bunch of people have put down their values. Thank you so much. So I see that Lana and Hester and Rachel and Alyssa all chose hope. So you are going to be placed into the hope breakout room. I see a couple of people have chosen Sedek. Sonia Marie has chosen Sedek. And Amy has also chosen Sedek. So you will be in a room too. We have a couple of people chose responsibility. Sylvie, you are in the responsibility room. Andrea, you are in the responsibility room. Robin is also in for responsibility. And then we have a couple of people who just have single ones. So for now, I might put you together and maybe you can pick one of your values. I know Celeste picked avodah, which is work. We have Matthew chose kavod. So I think I will put you both in to share a room together. I think I got everyone, but when we break out into the rooms, we'll be able to see if I left anyone out. So apologies if I did. So Alana, if you could take it away with our breakout rooms, and we will give you a couple of minutes, click on your poster for your value and have a little discussion about that value. Oh, hi, Lisa. You can hang out in here if you like. We'd love to put you in a room. So, welcome back into the space. Just a friendly reminder, because you were having conversations in your other room, so you might be unmuted. But if you could go back on mute for now, just to eliminate some background noise, that would be wonderful. So I'm hoping that you had a little bit of time to chat with your study buddy about your chosen value. And at the moment, we don't have time to hear some feedback from your group. But if you were going to be running this activity, this would be the moment to bring everyone in. You can ask you can ask a few people to share back. For the interest of time, I might just pick on Celeste. Can I pick on you? Celeste, what was the value that you were discussing?
So we were the hybrid group. We all had different values, and we didn't know the other people in our group, so it was more of a meet and greet. So I apologize. Pick another group.
Lovely. No, you know what? It's all community building, and if it is spurred on through the lens of that value, then that is absolutely perfect. So that might be a moment that you bring everyone together and you can feed back and hear what people were talking about with their chosen value. So as I said, that was taken directly that was an activity in our curriculum, and we just put it in the online space. We are now going to walk through another one of these activities. So I'm going to pass it over to Alana to take us through a consensus activity.
Thanks, Danielle. So as we mentioned earlier about the different tools that we've been using, one of the tools that we really like is something called Flippity. And as a reminder, this is an asynchronous platform. And so when you're using this, the the people using this, the participants using this, will be able to manipulate their board by themselves in their own time. So this particular activity that we're going to walk through is actually based on something from our Changemakers curriculum. There's an activity called Lost at Sea, and because we're in this online space, we've done our little take on it. This is the quarantine edition of Lost at Sea. The idea being that as you're introing consensus building in your programs, that it's about making these choices and coming to these choices together as a group. And so we thought this would be a fun twist. This is also something that you can create yourself and put your own twist on it. It can be any of these items. The idea is that you have more items that you can take with you and that you need to narrow down as a group. And so in this particular platform, you can actually manipulate the different little cards at the bottom and drag them across the board to help you contextualize and to make those decisions. This can be done as a large group, or it can be done in smaller breakout groups like you just did. You could have one of the participants share their screen and have the group sort of feedback and move these different things around. I could say to Danielle, you know what, I think pool should be much more on the further yes side of the board. Please move it there, and we can have that discussion. And that will help to eventually narrow down. And having this as a visual prompt, you can then bring in your classic consensus building tools. So things like your thumbs up, thumbs down method, where as we go through each item and want to narrow it down, you can say, is this a thumbs up, a thumbs side, or a thumbs down item? You can also use your 5-finger method with the same process as you talk about each different piece on the board. Or the other thing too that you could do is if you want to do something a bit more visual, you could have participants hold up a color-coded item from their home. So maybe a green item if they're excited to move an item forward, a yellow item if they want to take a pause and ask a question, or a red item if they want to maybe stop. And so that everybody could hold that up on their screens and also just give you that idea of a temperature check as you try to make these decisions together as a group. An important note for this type of activity is that we really recommend that all participants be on camera. As it is, consensus building in general is very discussion based, is based on active listening. And so to be able to have some of these discussions, it's really important that we're connecting with one another and looking at one another so we really can make these decisions and move things forward. And so in this particular activity, you could actually have the group take these items and break them down from these 10 and choose 3 either as a larger group, or again, you could split off into breakout groups and do this activity and have the smaller groups narrow this down to 3. The great thing about this, as I mentioned at the beginning, because this is asynchronous, this is a resource that is built, that is ready to go, and that you have access to, and that you do not need to reinvent the wheel. You can, once we share this with you, you can actually start sharing this out with your teens, and each one of them can use this tool. Flippity is really great in that way, that it's something that you could either design yourself, or you can use one of our tools that we've created. So this is one of them. And then we've actually created another Flippity tool that we are going to share with you as a way to talk about the justice issues, also from the JTFN Changemaker curriculum. And so here, the justice issues is, we have identified 22 different justice issues in the world. We know that there's more issues than that that need addressing, but these are 22 that teens will interact with and be able to contextualize. And generally are really great for diving in. We have Jewish text and different things based on these 22 issues that you can dive into further. But before you even get to that, there needs to be a prioritization process. So this is one of the activities that we've built that a team could then manipulate the different cards on the bottom and prioritize which item is the most important to them in this moment. We recognize that it might change tomorrow. It might even change an hour from now, but to take this moment to put these different justice issues into order. And this is definitely a great way to help process and to start thinking about how you're going to build out your mission statement and how these issues are going to come into play throughout the year. So we're going to take, I think, like literally just like a minute, because we want to give you the opportunity to at least be able to move it around and play with this tool. But we also want to leave plenty of time for questions. So what I want you to do is we're going to put the link into the chat box, or actually you can go straight to, you should have the link. If you go to your, our Bitmoji office and click the picture frame that says Justice Issues, you can click and you can start moving these cards around on the page. And I invite you to put just your top 3 issues that are on your mind in this moment. Just take literally a minute to do so, and then we'll come back.
Can I ask a quick question? Are we leaving them until the end?
Yeah, we're actually going to be moving into questions in literally right after we wrap up this activity.
Feel free to type it in the chat box as well. We're going to try and go through some of those questions.
So if you want to start making your way back into the Zoom space and out of your other browser, I'm not going to have people share back, but this was just, again, an introduction to how you could potentially use Flippity. And this is something that you can use these tools immediately. You'll have the links to these 2 different Flippities that we've created, but you actually can go ahead and go to the website and create your own. And this is something that, again, that as the students use this tool, they will be able to use this in an asynchronous way. So I think without further ado, I think there's a lot of questions coming in. We want to try to get to as many as we can. We're also really excited because next week we'll be able to have the opportunity to dive into some of these things even deeper. But Danielle, if you want to take back over and start going through, because I think you've been monitoring some of these questions.
I have. Yes, thank you so much for everyone's questions. Any of those quick questions that we can answer, we'll do now. Next week, come with your half-built things and we will workshop it and help and screen share with you so that you can build some of these things if you want to make your own Flippities, your own slides, etc. So someone asked a good question, which is it password protected? So it's not password protected in the traditional sense of like you type in a password, but you can change permissions on any of the Google documents. So you can have it set to if you have a link, then you have to have the specific link to go to the Google room. You can give permissions to edit if you want a co-teacher or a co-facilitator to have the back end. There's also an option which says open to everyone, which means you don't necessarily need the link. Anyone can get to that room. And then there is also a security permission, which is that they have to have permission. Like you have to know their email address and you have to give them specific permission in order to look at the slides. So it's generally in the share tab in any Google type document, and you can change that. So excellent question. Another question, is it free? Yes, it's free. It's on Google. So if you want to do it in PowerPoint and you want to use web PowerPoint, there's a charge depending on what Microsoft Office suite you have. But with Google, it's all free. We have some other questions. Someone asked about our little catalog. So the catalog is actually, now that you have that slide, that link that takes you to our little room, there's actually a little catalog on the shelf. You can click that. It says, please make a copy for your own Google account. You click that and you have access to our wonderful catalog. So you do need your own Google account. So make sure you're logged into your own personal work, whatever it is, Google account in order to set things up. Your participants do not necessarily need a Google account in order to view things. But for instance, if you're doing a Jamboard and you want them to interact, then they might need that depending on how you've got your permissions set up. Are there pre-created templates? Sort of, yes. In our catalog, we have those, a couple of rooms that we made up for you. The one that we made was even from items from our catalog. So the nice thing is you can just drag and drop, copy and paste into your own little Google slide. Just seeing other questions that we had in our chat box before I open the floor. Someone asked about our curriculum, our Changemakers curriculum. We have a brand new curriculum. It's wonderful. It's got lots of different pathways for how you might set up your teen philanthropy program, from 20-session year-round programs to shorter form, slightly shorter form programs as well. We will send an email around to everyone about how you can obtain the curriculum. Someone said, someone was asking about customizable backgrounds on Flippity. I can go into this in more detail next week. There are ways of uploading certain photos. Flippity is all done from actually an Excel spreadsheet, which you download a template. But there are ways that you can add your own backgrounds, which is what we did for Lost at Sea activity and for the Justice Issue Board. I have another question here. Can you share individual PDFs? Yes and no. You can always put something into a another Google slide. So you can do a screenshot of a PDF into a Google slide. You can also upload it into a separate doc in your Google Drive, as long as the permissions for that Google item are readable from your Google room. But absolutely, you can upload other items and have a link to that other item. What other questions? About Flippity, is the link that's generated unique for each user? The answer is no. It's like a web page, so it's asynchronous. So if you make your Flippity board, that is just like having a URL for a web page. There is just the one, and the participants can manipulate it and move it as much as they like, and the minute they hit refresh, it just goes back to normal. It's just like a web page. Okay, someone said that they created a Google room and they needed a code to join the class. The way that you get around that is to change the permissions about who can see that URL. And we can certainly go into that in more detail next week when we physically build the room with you and help you out doing that. So those were the immediate questions that I saw in the chat box, but I want to be able to open out questions to, oh yes, sorry, I just see someone said they clicked on the catalog and it's asking if they want to copy the document. The answer is yes, you want to copy the document. So the reason for that is Google Documents, and like you'll notice, like when you do Google, Google Pads or anything like that, they are synchronous. So if you give permission, I can type, and then if someone else types, it changes it. So there's a little hack that you can do if you want to give a link to someone else, is it forces them to make their own copy in their own Google Drive. So it means if you take our catalog and delete half the things, you actually haven't deleted half the things for anyone else who wants to go into that document. We're forcing you to make your own copy, which you can manipulate as much as you like.
And
so thank you.
Some people are saying that there's, it's not allowing them to copy. We're gonna look into that. I'm not sure if there's a glitch or if there's something in our settings that we need to adjust, but.
And you need to be logged into your Google account at the time. So if you are not logged into your Google, that might be why that glitch is happening. But we will look into that just in case it's on our end. But you want to make sure that you're logged into Google.
Oh, somebody just said it took a minute, but now it's fine.
Oh,
so.
Excellent.
Great.
I
also saw like a couple of things, yes, Danielle. There was a question about suggestions for creating Google Classrooms for running multiple cohorts. And so I think that there's definitely, you can, just as you just created a copy of the catalog, you can also create a copy of whatever room you create, and you can create as many copies as you need. So you could potentially have different slide presentations for each particular cohort if you like. If you think that all the information that they need to know is all uniform, you could just make one room and share that out with them. But you could potentially just keep on making a copy of that room and then just add different links and different information into each room. And it will be held just like Google Drive, that will be held in your Google slide deck database, whatever, but that back end. So you'll be able to access that and have multiple copies if you need it.
Wonderful. So we have not very much time left, and we want to be respectful of your time and end on time. I know that we just went over a lot of different information, which is why we're actually doing a specific Build It session next week. So just going to, oh, I'm sorry, I'm sharing the wrong thing. That would help. So just to wrap up for our time, I know that today we were going through a lot of the information, and a couple of people were asking about moments where you could collaborate and share with your peers and other people in the space. If you come next week for the Build It session, it's going to be a very free-flowing session, and we're really going to be workshopping with you on your own individual projects. So there will be moments we can set up breakout rooms if you want to have a chat with someone else, and you can workshop with each other. We'll be in the main space so we can help with you. So next week is a really good opportunity if you want to share and collaborate with your colleagues that are in the space. And just a couple more announcements as we close up. Oh, someone mentioned that they spotted a couple of fun things in the room. We added some silly things in there too for your own amusement. So when you're clicking around the space, you can have a look. So the follow-up to this, it's our Build It session. It's next week, which is on Thursday, September the 10th at 1 p.m. Eastern. Come with your half-made items. Come with no items if you need help setting up. We will work through them with you, specifically looking at the Google slides. We can also help you with any Flippity, Padlets and Mentees as well that you are interested in setting up. Another webinar we have coming up, a wonderful new impact report, which is called Give and Grow, which is all about it was a big study that we did about alumni and what happens to participants when they have left the program. That report is available at the moment, and we are going to do a whole webinar unpacking it. So that is going to be September the 9th. That is the day before our Build It session. We also have a wonderful webinar called Ask Rabbi Sachs, which is combining the wisdom of Rabbi Sachs and some really amazing technology, virtual reality technology, where you can input questions and sophisticated recordings of Rabbi Sachs answer those questions. So we are going to be doing a deep dive into that, asking for questions pertaining to philanthropy that we can put into their massive database. So really wonderful, interesting webinar coming up there too. So you've got our email addresses online on your screen now. Always feel free to email us with any questions that you may have. We love hearing from you. We really hope that the session today was useful and allowed you to think about different creative ways of how you can create your virtual space. We are with 2 minutes to spare. We are happy. We are so happy that you are here and that you gave your time. I will hang back for just a minute or two if there are any immediate questions that you want to ask or touch base or say hello, but we will close off the recording and we will say farewell. Alana, did I miss anything in our announcements?
I think you covered everything. So thanks so much for today. I'm going to stop recording.